Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Nahid and in this video I'm gonna talk to you about GitHub Copilot. What is GitHub Copilot? What are its advantages and disadvantages? Is there also a cost for using it? And of course, what facilities does it provide us? So let's check it. For the first step, let's introduce GitHub Copilot. What's it? Based on the official definition from GitHub, GitHub Copilot is an AI-paid programming that offers you autocomplete style suggestions as you code. You can use GitHub Copilot to get suggestions for the whole line or entire functions inside your editor. GitHub Copilot is trained on all languages that appear on public repositories. For each language, the quality of suggestions you receive may depend on the volume and diversity of training data for that language. For example, JavaScript is well represented in public repositories and is one of the GitHub Copilot's best supported languages. On the other hand, languages with less representation in public repositories may produce fewer or less robust suggestions. As the last point here, GitHub Copilot is available as an extension on different IDEs like Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, Vim, the JetBrains family of IDEs, and etc. After talking about the introduction for GitHub Copilot, let's check the whole process of installation, subscription, construction, and all the necessary settings inside the IDE step by step. So let's start. If you logged in your GitHub account, you will see this page. Inside it, on the top right corner, click on your profile photo and then click on Settings. As you can see here, there is Copilot menu in the left side. If you click on this one, you will be redirected to this page. As you can see here, before you start using GitHub Copilot, you will need to set up a free trial or subscription for your personal account. So you can click on Start Free Trial button, choose your desired plan, pay monthly or yearly, and then click on Get Access to GitHub Copilot button. In this page, after completing this form, I've completed this one before, and click on Save button, you will be redirected to the page to confirm your payment details. After finishing this process, you can continue the next steps. But before jumping to installing process, I should mention that GitHub Copilot is free for verified students, teachers, and maintainers of popular open source projects. After finishing the whole process, if you return and click again on Copilot, you can see the list of different IDs. Select required one and then you will be redirected to the installing construction. For example, if you want to install GitHub Copilot plugin on your JetBrains IDE, you can follow the steps that are mentioned here. Let's check them practically step by step and have deep dive into the IDE. Click on File and then Settings, write Plugins, and inside Marketplace, you can write GitHub Copilot. As you can see, there is a specific plugin for GitHub Copilot. After installing this one, you will have it inside your IDE, but you need to restart your IDE. So, I will restart it. After your IDE has restarted, click Tools menu and the GitHub Copilot. As you can see here, or inside this image, there is a menu for login to GitHub to start using GitHub Copilot. Now, after going through all the steps, it's time to check a small example of the usage of GitHub Copilot. For example, in my project, if I decide to add a simple code like a switch case, that's enough to type the word switch. And immediately GitHub Copilot will suggest me a full block of switch case based on the whole structure of this function. It's so fast. As you can see here, the suggested code is gray and it means that it's not finalized yet. So you can check it, and if you find it useful and correct, you can simply press tab to confirm it. That's it. Although you may need some small changes in it, but the whole structure is ready for you. On the other hand, if you don't like the suggested code, you can simply ignore it by pressing escape to remove it and continuing by your own. As you can see here, for example, I can press escape and that's it. Before I start talking about advantages and disadvantages of GitHub Copilot, I should mention something about the privacy of GitHub Copilot. One of the most frequent and controversial questions for every user when using GitHub Copilot is that, will my private code be shared with other users? In response to this question, GitHub has announced that no, this will not happen. They mentioned that we follow the responsible practices in accordance with privacy statement to ensure that your code snippets will not be used as suggested code for other users of GitHub Copilot. That's awesome. So for now, we can check advantages and disadvantages of GitHub Copilot. Let's start with advantages and benefits. As you may guess, one of the most important advantages of using GitHub Copilot is that it can save programmers time. It can suggest code snippets, functions, and even entire files that fit the context of what programmer is working on. Another advantage of using Copilot is that it can provide a starting point for developers. It can suggest code that is similar to what the developer is trying to accomplish. This can be especially helpful for developers who are stuck on a problem and need the inspiration to get started. The next advantage is that GitHub Copilot is a good learning tool. For beginners, Copilot can serve as a learning tool by suggesting best practices and offering code snippets they might not be familiar with it. As another advantage that I mentioned before, GitHub Copilot works with my favorite IDE and makes it easily accessible for many developers. As the last advantage of GitHub Copilot that I want to say, I think it would be better to mention reduction in errors. With AI-driven suggestions, there is a potential reduction in synthetical and logical errors. Okay, now after talking about advantages and benefits of GitHub Copilot, it's time to list some of downsides and disadvantages of GitHub Copilot. There are some negatives of GitHub Copilot that I like to share them with you. One of the biggest disadvantages of using GitHub Copilot is that it can be distracting. It can suggest many different things which can be overwhelming for some developers, lead to a loss of concentration, and can ultimately slow down the coding process. Another disadvantage of using GitHub Copilot is that it can lead to bad coding habits. Copilot can suggest code that is unoptimized, inefficient, or even insecure. This can be especially problematic for new programmers. As the third disadvantage, I want to mention the existence of some licensing issues when using GitHub Copilot. It means that when Copilot suggests a code, it might be copyrighted or not appropriately licensed. As another disadvantage, there is a risk that developer might become overly reliant on Copilot and potentially stunning their organic coding skills. And that means getting addicted to GitHub Copilot. And as the last disadvantage that I want to say, I think it would be better to mention loss of coding nuance. Coding isn't just about getting the job done. The way someone codes, the style and the nuance can get lost if you rely too much on automated suggestions. Now that we have talked about the advantages and disadvantages of GitHub Copilot, I'm very interested if you know any other disadvantages or advantages of GitHub Copilot, share them with me in the comments so that we can talk about them together. As a final topic that I found useful about GitHub Copilot, I want to mention two different features of GitHub Copilot. The first one is GitHub Copilot Chat and the second one is GitHub Copilot CLI. For the first feature, GitHub Copilot Chat, it is a chat interface that allows you to interact with GitHub Copilot, ask and receive answers about coding related questions with supported IDs. And for the second feature, GitHub Copilot CLI, it provides a chat-like interface that allows you to ask some questions about command line. You can ask GitHub Copilot either provide a command suggestions or explanation about a given command. By the way, if you like these topics and these two different features, you can read more about them with details inside the GitHub Copilot documentation that I've put related link inside the description of this video. As a conclusion about GitHub Copilot, I prefer to say GitHub Copilot is undoubtedly a groundbreaking tool that has the potential to reshape how developers code if it's used correctly. Its benefits, especially in terms of productivity and assistance, are undeniable. However, like any tool, it's essential to use it judiciously. Over-reliance or blind trust will lead to issues. As with any new technology, it's crucial to weigh the pros and cons and use it in a way that complements your skill rather than replacing them. So enjoy GitHub Copilot, but take care of your code structure. Okay, we are coming to the end of this video, and before saying goodbye, I would like to say that please don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you liked it, to be a support for me. And also I will be happy if you tell me your opinion about this video inside the comments. Until the next video, goodbye!